Hey guys, tonight we're plunging into something even colder than your morning iced coffee spilled on your lap, the prehistoric Ice Age. Before heated car seats, before fleece-lined leggings, before even the humble sock, there was you, suddenly waking up in a world where winter isn't a season, it's a permanent lifestyle choice. So before you bundle up, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from, and if you're currently wrapped in a blanket or just pretending your bathrobe is a mammoth pelt. Now, dim those lights. Crank up your fan for that vintage Ice Age wind effect, and get as comfortable as possible, preferably somewhere not made of frozen mammoth bones. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what life was really like for the original cold weather influencers? Could you build a shelter out of sticks and animal skins while your hands are too numb to even text? Could you survive dinner when dinner is possibly you? What do you do when your only shoes are someone else's shoes because you traded yours for a fish and a compliment? Could you make friends with a woolly rhino, or at least outrun one? Is cave decor just smearing mud on the walls? Or is there a prehistoric Leonardo da Vinci we don't know about? Congratulations! You've just woken up 20,000 years ago, somewhere in Ice Age Eurasia. You have no electricity, no GPS, and your idea of central heating is a fire you may or may not be able to start. You're shivering, probably hungry, and someone just invited you to join a mammoth hunt using a stick. Good luck. You open your eyes to a world that's less rise and shine, and more rise and immediately lose feeling in your toes. Your bed is a bundle of animal hides, possibly still shedding. Your pillow? A suspiciously lumpy mound of moss. Outside, the wind is howling like a pack of discontented wolves auditioning for a weather app. There's no snooze button, just the gentle encouragement of someone prodding you with a stick and telling you it's your turn to chase breakfast. The first thing you notice, besides the fact that your left foot has vanished into a zone of permanent numbness, is the air. It's so cold that each breath feels like you're inhaling a new type of punishment invented by the Ice Age just for you. Your bedroom is a community sleeping pile, so you're wedged between two relatives who both snore like they're reenacting a mammoth stampede. The family dog, if you're lucky enough to have one, has long since claimed the warmest spot, sprawled luxuriously across your knees. You try to shift and regain circulation, but the movement causes your hide blanket to let in a fresh blast of icy air that makes you reconsider your entire existence. There's no sunlight beaming through the window to gently wake you. There is no window, only the faint glow of a fire smouldering in the center of your cave, surrounded by last night's bones and the remnants of a half-burnt stick someone tried to use as a marshmallow skewer. The air smells of smoke, damp fur, and a hint of something suspiciously foot-related. As you sit up, slowly, because your joints are basically prehistoric door hinges, you realize the moss pillow has partially frozen to your hair. Free haircuts, another benefit of Ice Age living. You glance around, bleary-eyed, as the rest of the family starts to emerge from their own hide cocoons. No one looks well-rested. The oldest clan member, who claims to have survived 3 blizzards and 1 close encounter with a hungry cave bear, grunts a greeting. The youngest is already poking at the embers, mostly to see if they're still hot enough for a round of burn your siblings' fingers. Someone announces that it's time to get moving, which is prehistoric for, if we don't stand up soon, we'll freeze in place and become a teaching aid for the future. Getting dressed is its own odyssey. Every layer of fur is a new challenge in personal resilience, as you frantically wrap yourself in whatever pelts haven't been claimed by other family members or used as makeshift toilet paper. You have a favorite hide, a patchwork of reindeer and whatever else was slow enough to catch last spring, but it's currently occupied by your uncle, who is determined to sleep until the Ice Age ends. You settle for a slightly damp wolf pelt that smells like a dog's bad day and start the day's most important activity, trying not to shiver audibly. Outside, dawn is barely distinguishable from night, except the howling wind is a little more aggressive. Stepping beyond the shelter of the cave, your first job is to stomp your feet and flap your arms in a prehistoric version of jumping jacks, mostly to convince your body to stay alive. The world is vast, white, and utterly indifferent to your plans for the day. Your toes immediately attempt to retreat back into your body. You check the sky, looking for any sign of clear weather, but all you see is an endless canvas of grey clouds and the faint, drifting snow that somehow manages to find its way down the back of your tunic. Breakfast isn't waiting for you on the table. There is no table. There isn't even the hope of hot coffee. Instead, your first meal is whatever you can scavenge or negotiate from last night's leftovers. If you're lucky, there's a scrap of dried meat or a roasted root hidden beneath a pile of bones. If you're not, it's a communal argument about who finished the last of the mammoth jerky, punctuated by the world's least enthusiastic game of rock, stick, or frozen moss. By the time your body accepts its fate, and your brain registers that yes, this is reality and no, there's no going back to sleep. The day has begun. You're awake, dressed, and already slightly miserable. But you're alive, and in the Ice Age, that counts as a win. So next time you grumble about your mattress, or complain that your blanket isn't quite warm enough, remember, somewhere in history, a version of you woke up every day in a mammoth skin burrito, shook the frost out of their hair, and bravely faced another freezing, bone-chilling, entirely uncaffeinated dawn. Now, that's a morning routine. Forget cashmere. You're pulling on several layers of furs, some of which still have lingering mammoth odor. It's less look good, feel good, and more don't freeze, don't itch, don't die. Every item you own doubles as a scarf, hat, or desperate blanket. Your winter hat is made from a fox that probably had better hair than you do. Getting dressed in the Ice Age is less about self-expression and more about avoiding frostbite with every questionable design choice. Your entire wardrobe is a pile in the corner of the cave that, if you're honest, looks like a small mammal massacre. There's no such thing as a matching set, unless you count things that used to be alive and now keep you from freezing. You don't so much put on clothes as you do layer yourself in every available animal until you resemble a yeti with commitment issues. The first layer is usually the softest, if such a thing exists. Maybe it's rabbit fur, carefully stitched together with sinew and hope. It's light, delicate, and, if you close your eyes, you can almost pretend it's clean. On top of that, you wrap on something thicker, a reindeer hide or whatever was left after the last hunt, which still has a mysterious stain that no one wants to talk about. If you're lucky, you get to avoid the infamous elk leg warmers, which are warm but so itchy you end up doing a full-body interpretive dance by lunchtime. Accessories are essential, not for fashion, but for survival. Scarves are just long strips of whatever was left from last season's bison. Your gloves are basically animal paws with holes for your fingers, making you look like you're always mid-transformation into a werewolf. Socks? You wish. Most days, your feet are wrapped in strips of animal skin and tied with rawhide. Every step is a crunchy reminder that you're about one slippery rock away from inventing prehistoric foot fungus. Let's talk about the outer layer, the real statement piece, the mammoth hide. This is the showstopper, the prehistoric equivalent of a designer parka. It's heavy, awkward, and absorbs every smell within a 30-foot radius. The downside? It weighs as much as your dignity and makes moving through doorways a negotiation. The upside? Nothing says don't mess with me like wearing an extinct animal as a coat. You walk out of the cave and everyone, family, neighbors, possibly the spirits of fashion, takes notice. Of course, the downside to all these layers is that you spend most of your day scratching. Every piece of clothing is home to its own thriving ecosystem of lice, fleas, and mysterious fur beetles. You develop a highly advanced skill, the ability to scratch discreetly while holding a conversation about where to find more firewood. Occasionally, you'll discover that your favorite pelt has been repurposed as a baby blanket or emergency toilet mat. Welcome to the world of communal living, where everything is up for grabs and personal space is an urban legend. Cleaning your clothes is an event. First, you shake out your furs, which is the Ice Age equivalent of setting off a small snowstorm in your living room. Then, if you're feeling extra ambitious, you might try rinsing them in a near-frozen river, because nothing says invigorating start to the day like dunking your arms in icy water while your sleeves immediately refreeze around your wrists. Most of the time, you just let the smoke from the fire mask the smell and call it natural cologne. Fashion advice? In the Ice Age, it's simple. Layer until you can't feel feelings anymore. The trend is survival, the dress code is desperation, and no one's judging your sense of style because they're too busy making sure their own fox hat hasn't wandered off. The goal isn't to be best dressed, it's to be dressed, period. So, as you head out to face another glacial sunrise, trussed up like a stuffed bear at a taxidermy convention, remember? There was a time in history when every day was a runway show, and the theme was Don't Freeze. The next time you complain about wool sweaters being itchy, just imagine spending a week in prehistoric chic, accessorized with animal paws, scented with mammoth, and more layers than your grandma's lasagna. Welcome to Ice Age Couture, where the only rule is, live to see another season. What's for breakfast? If you're lucky, it's last night's roasted roots, frozen into a sort of paleo popsicle. If you're not, it's whatever you find in your frozen pack. Perhaps dried meat, possibly a handful of nuts you're pretending are pancakes. Coffee hasn't been invented, so your morning beverage is lukewarm snow water. And yes, it tastes exactly as sad as it sounds. Breakfast in the Ice Age isn't a leisurely ritual with fresh pastries and a podcast. It's more of a scavenger hunt set to the soundtrack of chattering teeth and stomachs that sound like distant cave bears. There are no trendy oat milk lattes, no avocado toast, no treat-yourself moments. If you want flavor, you're going to have to imagine it. The only thing on the menu is survival, served cold. The clan stirs from their pile of animal hides, each person immediately scanning the room for signs of leftover anything. The phrase "early bird gets the worm" has never been more literal. If you find a worm, you might just eat it. The breakfast table is a flat rock near the fire pit, blackened from hundreds of meals and permanently scented with charred turnip. You and your fellow survivors gather around it, clutching scraps of food like rare treasures. If you're feeling fancy, you might warm your breakfast near the embers. This is mostly symbolic, as the food remains exactly as cold as your expectations. Roasted root vegetables, turnips, parsnips, and the always slightly suspicious Ice Age carrot make up the bulk of the meal. Sometimes they're actually cooked. Other times, they're just slightly less frozen than the ground outside. Biting into one is a dental gamble, the kind that makes you grateful for every tooth you still possess. On good days, someone has managed to preserve a bit of dried meat from a recent hunt. Meat is a generous term. What you actually get is a strip of sinewy mammoth jerky that requires more jaw strength than an Olympic-level yawn. You gnaw at it, jaw aching, pretending you're feasting while secretly hoping your molars don't snap off. The flavor is a complex bouquet of smoked over questionable wood, with a hint of please don't ask what animal this was. If there's any kind of nut or berry, it's cause for celebration, assuming you can crack it open without tools or coax the last bit of flavor from something that's spent 3 months in the bottom of a pack. Occasionally, someone brings out a handful of seeds or a half-frozen mushroom, and the group negotiates who gets the biggest share with the intensity of international diplomats. Every meal is a masterclass in resourcefulness, compromise, and trying not to think about last week's unfortunate incident with that one kind of berry. Drinks are simple: snow, water, ideally from a spot upstream of where the animals bathe. If you're lucky, it's only slightly gritty. Boiling the water is a rare luxury, mostly because gathering firewood for tea when it's -10 is an act of heroism. There are rumours, passed down from the elders, about a time when hot drinks existed, but those are probably just stories made up to keep people from crying into their porridge. The entire breakfast experience is a team effort. Someone prods the fire, another breaks the ice off the food supplies, and a third tries to keep the family dog from stealing what little you have left. There's a camaraderie in suffering, shared eye rolls, grim jokes about the delicate bouquet of frozen tubers, and the unspoken agreement that anyone who mentions how nice brunch used to be in a past life will be forced to fetch water for the rest of the week. Of course, there's no time to linger. As soon as you've choked down the last bite and licked your fingers for phantom calories, it's time to get moving. Every calorie you manage to find has to be earned again 10 times over, gathering, hunting, and hoping something tastier wanders into your path. Breakfast doesn't fill you up, it simply delays the next wave of hunger. So, the next time you find yourself annoyed at soggy cereal or a slightly burnt piece of toast, remember, there was a version of you who started the day gnawing on root popsicles, washing it down with melted snow, and calling it a win. Welcome to the Prehistoric Breakfast Club. No mimosas, no pancakes, just pure, ice-cold survival. Feeling dirty? Good, because cleaning up means breaking the ice, literally. Your options are a freezing river or a handful of snow. Soap? You wish. Deodorant? Try masking your scent with another, stronger scent. Preferably not dead fish. On the bright side, everyone smells, so you're just blending in. In the Ice Age, hygiene is less about feeling fresh and more about not sticking to yourself. If you want to wash up, first you have to locate some water that isn't frozen solid. This usually means a brisk walk to the nearest stream, which is never actually near. By the time you arrive, your fingers have gone numb, your nose is running, and you're already questioning your life choices. Congratulations. You've reached the river, which is covered in a stubborn sheet of ice thick enough to skate on and thin enough to fall through. Now you get to smash your way through the crust, all while the local wildlife judges your technique. Once you have access to the water, the fun really begins. You dip your hands in, immediately regret it, and then try to convince yourself that ice baths are invigorating. The first splash on your face is a spiritual experience, a full-body reset that leaves you gasping, blinking, and possibly rethinking this whole survival thing. The good news? After a couple of seconds, you can't feel anything. The bad news? You still have to wash the rest of yourself. Soap as a concept has not yet graced the world with its bubbly presence. If you want to get clean, your best option is a handful of wet sand, or maybe scrubbing yourself with a chunk of rough lichen. Exfoliation in the Ice Age is a cross between extreme sports and medieval punishment. If you manage to get the grime off without removing half your skin, you're already doing better than most. Sometimes, people will collect ashes from the fire and try to use those to clean, creating a special brand of Ice Age body wash called Gritty Disappointment. Hair care is a group activity, whether you like it or not. Every few days, someone will announce that it's time to pick the bugs, and the entire clan gathers for a round of nitpicking and social bonding. This is basically a prehistoric spa day, if your spa is also home to lice, fleas, and that one uncle who always finds the biggest tick. Your best hope for a good hair day is to hide most of it under a hat made of animal fur and pretend the rest isn't slowly turning into a bird's nest. As for your teeth, let's just say that floss has not been invented yet. Dental care involves chewing on sticks, gnawing tough roots, and occasionally hoping a sharp bone will dislodge last night's mammoth jerky from your molars. Breath fresheners include mint if you can find it. But more often, it's just hope your conversation partner is upwind. Deodorant? Dream on. Everyone carries a personal aroma that could best be described as earthy with hints of panic. If you really want to make an effort, you might rub on some wild herbs or roll around in pine needles, provided you're not allergic. Some ambitious souls have been known to apply a dab of animal fat, reasoning that if you can't smell like a spring meadow, you can at least outstink the competition. The local wolves are either impressed or appalled. Laundry is an ordeal reserved for desperate times. Clothes are worn until they're either actively offensive or stiff enough to walk on their own. Washing your furs means dragging them down to the river, slapping them against rocks, and then waiting days for them to dry in the cold. More often than not, You just brush off the big chunks and hope the wind takes care of the rest. Despite all of this, or maybe because of it, nobody really judges. Scent is part of clan identity. If you're too clean, people worry you've been hanging around the enemy tribe. So, the next time you sigh about your shower pressure, or sniff your armpits after a long day, just remember, you're living in a world with soap, shampoo, and laundry machines. In the Ice Age, you're just happy if your hair hasn't frozen into a solid block and your neighbors can stand to sit beside you at dinner. Smelling like survival, you head out for another day. Proud, pungent, and perfectly prehistoric. Community is everything. You huddle in caves, swapping stories, sharing warmth, and hoping no one brings up that time you tried to start a fire and just smoked out the entire clan. Social status is measured in mammoth tusks and how many teeth you haven't lost to chewing on frozen roots. In the Ice Age, your social calendar is less cocktail party and more let's not die of hypothermia before sunrise. Personal space is as fictional as central heating. And your friend group is whoever is closest and emitting the most body heat. Your extended family, neighbors, and that one cousin who never stops singing are all crammed into a cave decorated with abstract charcoal art and the faint smell of desperation. Evening is prime social hour. The clan gathers around the fire, sometimes a roaring blaze. More often a sullen pile of embers everyone pretends is roaring. Conversations are equal parts survival tips, mammoth jokes, and remember when stories. There's always someone with a tale about the time the saber-tooth almost got me, usually growing more dramatic with each retelling. If you listen closely, you'll hear the prehistoric version of humble bragging. I once outran a dire wolf barefoot, uphill, in a blizzard. There are no secret cliques in the Ice Age. If you tried to form one, everyone would know by lunchtime because secrets last about as long as a snowflake near the fire. Gossip is the lifeblood of the cave, travelling faster than sound. You know who borrowed whose fur cloak and didn't return it, who snuck extra nuts from the food stash, and who keeps misplacing the best throwing rock. The phrase "it takes a village" is both literal and a warning. Everyone knows your business, and if you step out of line, expect a full committee meeting by firelight. Entertainment is entirely DIY. If you want music, someone picks up a hollowed-out bone flute and gives their best impression of ice hitting rocks. Singing is encouraged, though not always in tune. Dancing is even less structured, mostly people hopping from foot to keep their circulation going while pretending it's a ritual. Board games haven't been invented, but there's always guess what's in this pouch, a thrilling activity that's 50% fun and 50% hazard to your health. Dating is refreshingly straightforward. Flirting involves offering the least frozen piece of meat or sharing a spot closest to the fire. Romantic tension reaches its peak when you volunteer to pick lice out of someone's hair. Marriage proposals are mostly about practical partnerships. Will you hunt mammoth with me, even when my spear is crooked and my feet are cold? The answer is always yes, because love in the Ice Age is about staying alive and laughing at frostbite together. Group projects are a matter of life or death. Building a new shelter, organizing a hunt, or hauling firewood isn't just work. It's a community event. The clan's survival depends on cooperation, which means you can't really avoid your least favorite relative. There's always a job for everyone, from tracking animals to keeping watch for trouble, and no one gets to take the night off just because they don't vibe with group activities. Passive-aggressive sighing is the universal language of the lazy Ice Age teenager. Even conflict resolution is communal. If two people argue, the whole group weighs in, usually over several rounds of dried root snacks. Disputes are settled with a mixture of jokes, shaming, and, if things get serious, a dance-off by the fire. Grudges don't last long. When you're sharing a cave with 10 people and a woolly dog, there's not a lot of room for sulking. Despite all the challenges, cave society is tight-knit. You celebrate successes together, like a lucky hunt or a well-timed fire that actually stays lit. You mourn together when things go wrong. You even invent rituals to chase away bad weather, or invite good luck, complete with elaborate chants and wild speculation about which animal spirit is responsible for the snowstorm. So, if you ever think your family group chat is annoying, or your neighbors are too nosy, remember, your prehistoric ancestors spent every waking and sleeping moment in each other's business, keeping each other warm, fed, and most importantly, entertained. Because in the end, surviving the Ice Age wasn't just about furs and fire, it was about never having to freeze alone. There's no traffic, but there are herds of actual woolly mammoths, sometimes helpful, mostly terrifying. Your morning walk is more like an obstacle course across icy tundra, dodging predators and desperately trying to look unappetizing. Forget everything you know about a daily commute. There's no snoozing in bumper-to-bumper gridlock, no coffee cup in hand, and definitely no relaxing playlist unless you count the distant sound of wolves arguing over breakfast. The prehistoric commute is a test of agility, strategy, and your ability to convince giant mammals you're not worth the calories. You start your day before the sun even considers making an appearance, your breath billowing in little clouds that vanish almost instantly in the chill. You tuck your fur layers a bit tighter and step out onto the icy expanse, your feet crunching over snow and frost, every step sending a jolt of, "Is this patch slippery or just cold?" up your spine. It's you and the elements, and maybe that one overly enthusiastic uncle who always tries to turn every journey into a race. The road ahead is anything but straightforward. Giant herds of mammoths lumber across your path, occasionally pausing to snort steam in your direction, just to remind you who really owns this land. If you're lucky, you catch them in a good mood, and they simply ignore you. If you're not, you get the prehistoric equivalent of road rage, a mammoth side-eye, and a raised trunk that says, "Try it, I dare you." You never do. Of course, mammoths aren't your only problem. The Ice Age tundra is home to a whole menagerie of things that would like to turn your morning commute into their own brunch. Saber-toothed cats, packs of dire wolves, giant cave bears, and, if you're especially unlucky, a short-tempered woolly rhinoceros with no sense of humor. Everyone in your clan knows the drill. Walk in a group, keep moving, and try not to look like the slowest member. Safety in numbers is less a motto and more a way of life. You've learned to walk softly, avoiding the crunchiest patches of ice. Every so often, someone steps through a snowdrift and disappears up to their knees. Laughter follows, but so does a sense of urgency. Every minute spent floundering in the snow is a minute closer to becoming a cautionary tale. The true athletes of the commute are the kids, who seem to treat the daily march like a combination of hide-and-seek and competitive gymnastics. Leaping from snow mound to snow mound, occasionally stopping to dare each other to lick icicles. Never a good idea. As you trudge along, you scan the horizon for familiar landmarks, a bent birch tree, a suspiciously shaped boulder, the remains of last season's camp. There's no GPS, only your memory, your wits, and the vague hope that no blizzard rolled through overnight to rearrange the entire landscape. If you get lost, your best bet is to find a high spot and look for the mammoth herds. They always know where the grass is greenest, or at least less dead. There are moments of beauty too. The sky might light up in shimmering pink and orange as the sun creeps over the endless white, casting long shadows of mammoths moving in slow motion across the tundra. You pause to watch, half in awe, half in envy. Those mammoths really know how to pick a commute. Break time is whenever you find shelter from the wind or spot a berry bush not yet ravaged by wildlife. You munch on frozen nuts, sip snow water, and hope nothing with more teeth than you decides to join the picnic. The air is sharp, conversations are brief, and you always keep an eye on your surroundings. It's multitasking, Ice Age style. Arriving at your destination, a hunting ground, a fishing spot, or a distant patch of edible roots, is never guaranteed. There are days when you make it, and days when you retreat, chased home by an angry herd or a gathering storm. And yet, you do it all over again tomorrow because in the Ice Age, the commute isn't just how you get to work. It is the work. So, the next time you grumble about potholes or slow drivers, remember, your Ice Age ancestors would have gladly traded every mammoth stampede and saber-tooth encounter for a 10-minute delay at a red light. At least in modern times, your car heater doesn't try to trample you. Starting a fire is the prehistoric version of winning the lottery. You're hunched over a pile of sticks, rubbing, striking, praying, and occasionally swearing in proto-language. If you succeed, you're a hero. If you fail, everyone knows, and you get to sleep in the cold spot. Every morning, fire is your top priority and your greatest stressor. There's no lighter in your pocket, no box of matches on the shelf, and certainly no click to ignite stovetop. It's just you, a couple of rocks, a few stubborn sticks, and a burning desire not to freeze to death before lunchtime. The family gathers around, each person contributing helpful advice like try harder, use more breath, and maybe don't mess it up this time. The stakes? Only warmth, survival, and the delicate balance of your social reputation. Your tools are whatever you managed not to lose yesterday. The preferred combo is a piece of flint and a hunk of iron pyrite if you're fancy. Otherwise, it's wood on wood, a lesson in patience, humility, and blisters. You start with tinder, dry grass, moss, a feather, anything that might possibly catch a spark. Everyone claims they have the secret trick. Rub faster. No, slower, more pressure. Less pressure. Have you tried singing to it? You'd try interpretive dance at this point if you thought it would help. You kneel in the cold, knuckles scraped, breath steaming, desperately hoping today is your day. The whole clan watches, wrapped in furs, and occasionally offers feedback that's only slightly more supportive than a heckling crowd at a medieval sporting event. If you catch even the smallest wisp of smoke, you're suddenly a magician, a rock star, and the world's greatest problem solver. If you sneeze and scatter the tinder, you're also today's cautionary tale. When the first tiny curl of smoke rises, everyone leans in, hope flickering brighter than the fire itself. Someone inevitably coughs at the exact wrong moment, sending the delicate stack of kindling tumbling over, and you get to start all over again. Your hands grow numb, your patience wears thin, and your proto-language skills get a thorough workout. In these moments, you gain a new appreciation for modern heating and the miracle of electric blankets. Fire is more than just heat. It's community, safety, and the difference between dinner and raw mammoth tartare. If you succeed, you are celebrated. Children will remember the story for years. Remember when Uncle Ugg saved us from the great frostbite of last Tuesday? If you fail, well, no one says anything. They just look at you with that special Ice Age disappointment, usually reserved for people who let the dog eat the last piece of dried meat. But failure doesn't just mean being cold, it means risking your very survival. Without fire, food can't be cooked, water can't be boiled, and you lose the only thing keeping saber-toothed cats at bay. The dark is more than an inconvenience, it's a daily threat, and the fire is your only shield. That's why every adult learns the craft, passing it down to the kids as soon as they can rub two sticks together without crying. Of course, once you have fire, you become its servant. Someone has to feed it constantly, tossing on twigs, then branches, then the occasional mystery log that smokes like a depressed dragon. Leaving fire unattended is a rookie mistake. Wind, snow, and the occasional bored dog can snuff it out in seconds. At least once a week, someone panics when the flames get too low and throws on half the food stash by accident. Smoked roots is now a culinary staple. There are good days when the fire blazes high and the whole clan gathers around, basking in the heat, sharing stories, and watching the sparks dance on the ceiling. There are bad days when the kindling is damp, the air is thick with disappointment, and you're all wearing 3 extra layers just to keep your blood flowing. So, next time you flick on your heater or light a candle with the press of a button, spare a grateful thought for your Ice Age ancestors, hunched over a stubborn pile of sticks, praying for warmth, and learning the ancient art of patience by firelight. In the prehistoric world, Nothing says success like finally, gloriously, not freezing. Your open concept home is a cave that smells like wet dog, charred bone, and ambition. Insulation? Moss in the cracks. Interior design? Chalk drawings, mysterious handprints, and a pile of rocks that may or may not be a chair. Welcome to the Ice Age real estate market, where every home is move-in ready if you can get the bears out first. The most desirable properties come with natural stone walls, built-in draftiness, and a colour palette best described as grey with a side of damp. Forget granite countertops. Your biggest flex is a roof that only leaks during torrential melt. Location, location, location. If you can find a cave with a southern exposure and only a moderate chance of rockfall, you're basically a property mogul. Your cave has everything you could ever want. If your standards are extremely low and your needs begin and end with not dying of exposure, the floor plan is refreshingly simple. Dirt. Sometimes it's packed earth. Sometimes it's mud. Occasionally it's suspiciously sticky and you don't ask questions. There's no foyer, no bedrooms, no master bath, just one giant communal space where sleeping, eating, crafting, and arguing all blend together in a blur of prehistoric togetherness. Privacy is a forgotten luxury. The only door is a heavy mammoth hide you haul across the entrance at night, mainly to keep out wolves, wind, and your neighbour who keeps borrowing firewood. If you want alone time, your best bet is to sit behind the biggest stalagmite and hope nobody notices. Family life happens at full volume, from snores echoing off the walls to someone's toddler discovering the joy of banging rocks together at dawn. When it comes to heating, you rely on a fire in the center of the cave, carefully monitored, fiercely protected, and occasionally responsible for that charred bone signature scent. The smoke works its way up and out, if you're lucky, or just lingers as a gentle reminder that ventilation is a future invention. On windy nights, the flames flicker and shadows dance across the walls, making everyone jumpy about the possibility of saber-toothed squatters. Interior decor is creative and collaborative. The youngest clan members love to decorate the walls with their best animal impressions, mostly bison, mammoth, and, on bad days, unidentifiable blobs that everyone insists are symbolic. The adults add their own flourishes, handprints, tally marks for successful hunts, and the occasional painted warning, beware, falling rocks and angry mother-in-law. Every mark is a piece of family history, even if nobody remembers what it means. Furniture is a work in progress. If you're clever, you've gathered a few logs or arranged some flattish stones to serve as seats. If you're ambitious, maybe you've stacked rocks into something resembling a table, only for the family dog to claim it as a nap spot. Pillows are bundles of moss and animal skins, perfectly engineered to be slightly lumpy and always a little damp. Shelving? That's a ledge you found last week, now home to a collection of rocks, bones, and artifacts. Translation: things you tripped over. Household chores are a group affair. Sweeping means kicking out the biggest sticks and leaves. Taking out the trash means dragging bones to the far side of the cave, where hopefully nobody trips on them in the dark. If someone spills mammoth fat on the floor, it's there for the season. The best way to clean is to move everything over a few feet and start again. Despite the rough edges, your cave is home. It's where you gather every night, swapping stories and warmth as the wind howls outside. It's where your children learn to walk, your elders remind everyone how good the caves were back in their day, and everyone pitches in to survive another Ice Age day. When the storms rage and the snow piles up, you're grateful for every moss-stuffed crack and every drafty corner, because in this world, a roof over your head, any roof, is the ultimate luxury. So next time you complain about your rent or that weird creak in your apartment, picture your ancestors scraping moss into wall holes, negotiating cave real estate with wolves, and calling a pile of rocks ergonomic. Your Ice Age mortgage? Just don't get eaten before sunrise. Now that's what you call cave? Sweet cave? Before Instagram, there were cave paintings. your art supplies, charcoal, mud, animal fat, and hope. You draw hunting scenes, mysterious symbols, and at least one poorly rendered mammoth that everyone pretends to recognize. In the Ice Age, home decor is less about following trends and more about leaving your mark, literally, on whatever stone surface you can reach. There are no Pinterest boards, just the broad, uneven walls of your cave, and a collective urge to make things just a little less bleak. The result? A prehistoric art gallery, equal parts family history, group therapy, and a never-ending guess what I drew competition. The process starts with scavenging the best supplies. There's no art store, so you improvise. A chunk of burnt wood for deep black lines, a smear of red ochre from the riverbank, maybe a dab of crushed berries if you're feeling extra creative or reckless. Animal fat makes the colors stick, and mud adds texture, sometimes intentionally, sometimes just because a kid stepped in it and decided to help. You can almost hear the clan's version of Watch the Walls echo through time. Every member of the group gets involved. The youngest start with handprints, bold, tiny splashes of color, each one a signature of "I was here," and yes, my hands were covered in something sticky. Older siblings, emboldened by encouragement or sibling rivalry, move on to animals. Bison, reindeer, woolly mammoth. The trick is to get the legs facing the same direction as the head, but artistic license is rampant, and your cave soon boasts a herd of creatures with questionable anatomy. The real artists, usually the patient elders or the particularly bored, tackle bigger projects. Long murals cover the best walls, telling stories of the great mammoth hunt, the time Uncle Og fell in the river, or mysterious spirals whose meaning is debated by every generation. Some symbols are spiritual. Others are just the prehistoric version of doodling during a boring meeting. Everyone has an opinion. Clearly that's a sun. No, it's a giant turnip. Actually, it's the full moon over the hunting grounds, obviously. The best spot in the cave is reserved for the masterpiece. A hunting scene so dramatic that even the clan dog looks up and howls at it sometimes. It's all dynamic poses, big horns, and the suggestion of speed. If you squint, you might even see a reindeer mid-leap or a mammoth charging into legend. Every visitor is invited to interpret the scene, and some claim it brings good luck for the next real hunt. The reality? It keeps spirits up on cold nights and gives everyone something to talk about besides the weather. Art criticism is alive and well. If a bison comes out looking suspiciously like a potato, there's a round of gentle teasing, followed by someone adding extra horns or legs for good luck. No one wants to erase anything. There's a superstitious belief that the art holds the energy of the clan, so the walls get denser every season, a layer cake of family jokes, triumphs, and moments of boredom. If you mess up badly enough, someone will just add a new mammoth over the top and pretend it was intentional. Your artistic toolkit is also practical. Need a torch? Dip a stick in leftover animal fat and set it alight to illuminate your next masterpiece. The flickering shadows from the fire make the animals seem to move, animating your wall art in the world's first and only animated film festival. The children are entranced, the adults quietly impressed, and even the family dog seems to appreciate the new ambience. Sometimes you experiment with new mediums, scratching lines with a sharp rock, splattering water for special effects, or arranging piles of stones into sculptures. If you're especially ambitious, you might carve a figurine from bone and add it to your ever-growing art collection on the family shelf, otherwise known as a flat spot on the cave floor. So, next time you're agonizing over paint samples or wondering if that print really ties the room together, remember your prehistoric ancestors, armed with nothing but charcoal, mud, and dreams, turned cold, blank walls into a vibrant tapestry of survival and hope. Long before hashtags and home makeovers, there was you, a wall, and the oldest creative urge to say, "We were here." Lunch is whatever you can scavenge, snare, or awkwardly barter for. Mostly it's dried meat, so tough you're convinced you're eating an old sandal. Sometimes it's berries. Sometimes it's disappointment. In the Ice Age, midday meal is just a fancy term for whatever you can chew without breaking a tooth. There are no lunch breaks scheduled on a neat little calendar, and absolutely no lunch boxes filled with neatly cut sandwiches. If you want to eat, you'd better be ready to improvise with whatever nature begrudgingly offers up, and that's if you beat the local wildlife to it. On a good day, you might score some dried strips of reindeer or bison left over from a successful hunt. Good is a relative term, because while the meat is high in protein, it's also high in what scientists now call chew time. It takes about an hour to finish a single piece, with each bite doubling as a full-body workout for your jaw. Someone inevitably tries to soften the jerky by soaking it in snow water, but all you get is a slightly less icy, equally flavorless slab. At least it's filling. If you eat enough, you can almost ignore the feeling that your molars are slowly giving up on life. Fresh options are rare and celebrated. Sometimes you'll find a handful of winter berries frozen to a twig or a patch of wild onions clinging to the edge of a melting stream. These treasures are gathered quickly and split with the clan, everyone pretending not to notice the occasional bug hitchhiking in the bunch. You nibble with the hopeful optimism of someone desperately pretending that this meal is light and refreshing instead of mostly risk and regret. Bartering is a major part of lunch strategy. If your morning hunt went poorly, you might have to swap your last fishhook or a handful of fire-starting fungus for a chunk of someone else's food stash. Negotiations are tense, and the exchange rate on mammoth fat is shockingly high. Forget gold and silver, the real currency is calories. A single, shriveled root can be worth more than your favorite bone needle, especially when the wind howls and your stomach starts composing angry songs. Preparation is basic. Fire is precious and fuel is limited, so most days the menu is raw, smoked, or charred beyond recognition. Soup is a rare luxury, made from boiling whatever scraps you can collect. The result is a sort of Ice Age broth, a warm grey liquid bobbing with mystery bits, and the lingering suspicion that the family dog contributed something when no one was looking. Still, the heat is comforting, and you slurp your share with gratitude, even as you wonder whether that floating thing is edible or an ancient version of a hairball. There's little in the way of table manners. You eat with your hands, your teeth, and sometimes just sheer willpower. Everyone gathers in a loose circle around the fire. Or, if you're on the move, on a windswept patch of snow with numb fingers clutching whatever you manage to forage. You eat quickly, partly to get it over with, partly because there's always a chance something bigger, hungrier, and furrier is watching nearby, hoping to join the meal. Conversation during lunch is brisk, the topics rotating between what animal tracks did you see today and who remembers where we hid the emergency stash of berries. Occasional arguments break out over the last piece of meat or who's hoarding the flattest sitting rock. But hunger has a way of smoothing things over. After all, tomorrow, you might be the one scraping the last crumbs from the bottom of the shared pouch. If you're lucky, someone will tell a story to take your mind off the taste of the meal. Maybe a tale of a hunt gone wrong, or occasionally right, or the legend of the giant salmon that got away. Laughter mixes with the crunch of dried meat and the howling wind, and you're reminded, yet again, that in the Ice Age, it's less about what you eat and more about who you eat it with. So, the next time you complain about your lunch options or roll your eyes at leftovers, remember, your ancestors faced frozen meat, mystery berries, and the never-ending search for just one more bite. Lunch wasn't just a meal, it was proof you'd made it halfway through another day. And in the Ice Age, that was always worth celebrating, even if you had to chew your way through it. Time for the big event, hunting. You grab your trusty spear, possibly more stick with attitude than actual weapon, and head into the snow with your clan. Success means food. Failure means another night of root stew, and the eternal shame of missing a slow-moving bison. The Ice Age hunt is not for the faint of heart or the easily winded. There's no trip to the supermarket, no ordering delivery, and definitely no vegan options unless you count chewing on birch bark out of pure desperation. Today, your shopping list is simple. Anything with meat on it that doesn't also want to eat you. Your weapons are homemade, your clothes are fur, and your battle plan is try not to look delicious. First, the clan assembles at the mouth of the cave, every person layered up until you all look like sentient shag carpets. There's the familiar ritual of sharpening spear tips and swapping tips on animal tracks. Your uncle, who once almost caught a mammoth, provides loud commentary on the proper way to sneak up on a herd, as if any mammoth has ever failed to notice a group of humans bumbling around in the snow. You move out in a line, eyes peeled for signs of life. A patch of disturbed snow, a clump of fur snagged on a bush, or tracks leading toward distant hills. The snow crunches beneath your feet, your breath comes out in frosty clouds, and every sense is on high alert. The wind carries every sound, branches creaking, distant wolf howls, your cousin's stomach growling loud enough to scare away anything with ears. Hunting is a team sport, and everyone has a job. The youngest carry extra supplies and try not to trip over their own feet. The strongest take the lead, ready to charge or retreat at a moment's notice. The cleverest hang back, plotting how to flush out prey from cover, or just plotting how to get out of cleaning up afterward. Even the clan dog gets in on the act, racing ahead and pretending it's not secretly hoping to score a bone for itself. When you finally spot a herd, maybe bison, maybe reindeer, possibly just a family of extremely large rabbits if you're having a bad day, the adrenaline kicks in. Strategies are whispered, plans are made, and suddenly everyone is an expert. Do you circle around and drive them toward the river? Do you charge in and hope for the best? Usually, it's some combination of both, plus a lot of improvisation and shouting. If the wind shifts at the wrong moment, your scent drifts right to the animals, and they scatter like, well, prehistoric animals who have seen this movie before. The chase is frantic, slippery, and often hilarious. Someone always loses a shoe. Or the prehistoric version of a shoe, basically, a furry sock tied with hope. And there's a high chance of at least one person face-planting into a snowdrift. The prey is faster, more agile, and fully aware that it does not want to end up as the guest of honor at your next communal dinner. You throw your spear, hoping for a clean hit, but most of the time it lands wide, and you spend the next hour tracking down both the animal and your only decent weapon. Success is sweet, rare, and celebrated. When the clan brings down a reindeer or even a small bison, there's cheering, hugging, and the kind of relief only hunger can produce. The animal is hauled back home, skinned, butchered, and roasted over the fire. Every part is used, meat for eating, bones for tools, hide for clothing. Nothing goes to waste. The meal that night is a feast. Stories are retold with a little more flair, and everyone forgets how close they came to having to gnaw on pine needles. Failure, on the other hand, means trudging home empty-handed, trying to pretend you're not hungry, and preparing for another helping of root stew with a garnish of humble pie. The shame is gentle but lasting, just enough to motivate you to aim better next time. So, the next time you grumble about grocery shopping or sigh at a disappointing takeout order, remember, your Ice Age ancestors risked it all for dinner. Every meal was a win or lose scenario, and the only delivery app was a successful hunt and a lot of luck. Welcome to Ice Age fine dining, where you either catch dinner or dinner catches you. You're foraging for edible plants, nuts, and roots, all while playing the daily game of will this kill me or not. Everything is either delicious, deadly, or both. And you still haven't figured out which mushrooms are the fun ones. In the Ice Age, gathering is not a casual stroll through the farmer's market with an eco-friendly tote bag. It's a full-contact sport involving intuition, a lot of squinting, and more trial and error than you'd like to admit. Your tools are simple. A digging stick, a crude basket woven from reeds, and a pair of hands that are permanently cold, dirty, and slightly scratched from yesterday's berry emergency. Each morning, you and a few clanmates set out on a mission to find something, anything, edible. The first challenge? Navigating the landscape. The ground is mostly frozen, broken up by patches of stubborn moss, gnarled shrubs, and the occasional deceptive puddle disguised as solid earth. You're dressed in at least 4 animal pelts, which, while warm, make you about as agile as a rolled-up sleeping bag. Stealth is impossible. You crunch, rustle, and occasionally trip your way through the undergrowth, hoping to scare up a rabbit or, if nothing else, not run face first into a thorn bush. Root vegetables are the backbone of your diet, and you become an expert at identifying every lumpy, dirt-caked possibility. Some roots taste vaguely sweet. Others are so bitter, your mouth forgets happiness for the next hour. Then there are the wild carrots, prize finds, except they look exactly like the death carrots, which, as the name suggests, are an extremely poor snack choice. Luckily, there's usually an elder along to mutter dire warnings and occasionally slap things out of your hands. It's like having a walking WebMD, only with more paranoia and fewer advertisements. Berries are the real lottery. The season is short and the competition fierce, not just with fellow humans, but with birds, rodents, and anything else that recognizes a free meal when it sees one. When you spot a bush laden with dark purple or red berries, it's a rush of adrenaline, right up until you remember last spring's incident, when half the group spent 3 days in gastrointestinal regret after trusting the wrong bush. You develop an instinct for cautious optimism and a backup plan involving a lot of snow water just in case. Nuts, when you find them, are gold. They're high in calories, store well, and give you a break from chewing on roots. The catch? Most are locked inside shells that require approximately the same force as cracking a safe. If you manage to get one open, you share the bounty, unless you're feeling selfish, in which case you may find yourself the subject of some passive-aggressive cave paintings later. Mushrooms are the ultimate gamble. Some are edible, some will send you on a vision quest, and some will ensure you never go gathering again. You sniff, prod, and debate. Everyone has a story about that one time the shaman saw the future and then threw up for 2 days. The safest option is usually to leave mushrooms to the experts, or, barring that, to the bravest member of the group who is already used to rolling the dice with their digestive tract. While you work, there's a constant, low-level anxiety about predators. Wolves, bears, and the occasional saber-toothed cat also roam these parts, and you become adept at glancing over your shoulder every few minutes while pretending you're just looking for more edible moss. Gathering is a social event as well as a necessity. You swap stories, grumble about the weather, and complain that the mammoth hunters have it easy. There's a shared satisfaction in a full basket, and the promise of something more interesting than boiled bark for dinner. At the end of the day, you return to the cave with your haul: a few knobbly roots, a scattering of nuts, a handful of berries after thorough peer review, and maybe a sprig of something green and mysterious. Dinner won't be glamorous, but it will keep everyone alive and just slightly hopeful. So the next time you debate whether to eat that questionable yogurt in the back of your fridge, think of your Ice Age self, root in one hand, berry in the other, still wondering whether that mushroom was a wise decision. In prehistoric times, farm to table really meant if you survive, you get dessert. Saber-toothed cats, cave bears, wolves with commitment issues, the neighborhood is lively. You spend your afternoons scanning the horizon, carrying a stick, and hoping you're not on the menu. Living in the Ice Age means the whole world is basically a wildlife documentary, except you're not the camera crew, you're the nervous antelope. Every day, the landscape is teeming with enormous hungry things with teeth like steak knives and an attitude problem. You quickly realize that no matter how many animal hides you layer on, or how big you try to make yourself look, there's always something bigger, faster, and just as interested in dinner as you are. Your relationship with predators is complicated. On the one hand, you respect their skills. Nobody moves as quietly through the snow as a saber-toothed cat. On the other hand, you'd prefer not to be the next item on their tasting menu. Every trip outside the cave turns into a tactical operation. You venture out in groups, stick close to the fire, and keep one eye on your surroundings at all times. Anyone who strays too far alone gets a gentle reminder in the form of a cautionary tale. Remember Cousin Thog? Neither do we. Stick with the group. Cave bears are the true landlords of the region. They're bigger than your entire extended family and just as moody before breakfast. Stumbling onto a bear's den is the fastest way to find out how fast you and everyone you know can run in knee-deep snow. If you're lucky, the bear just grunts and rolls over. If not, you perfect your high-speed retreat while yelling advice that nobody listens to, like, "Don't look back," and "Why are you still holding that stick?" Wolves are the socialites of the predator world. They travel in packs, howl at inconvenient times, and seem to have endless energy for chasing anything that moves. Their group dynamic is impressive. You can't help but admire their teamwork, right up until you remember you're the motivational speaker in this scenario. Some days, you try to outstare them across the tundra, and other days you simply accept that if they want your leftovers, they're getting your leftovers. Saber-toothed cats are the celebrities of danger. Sleek, muscular, and possessing the kind of smile you never want directed at you, they appear when you least expect it, usually when you're distracted by something important, like untangling your snowshoe from a bush. The best defense is vigilance, and, if all else fails, finding someone in your group who runs just a little slower than you do. Clan elders claim to have secret techniques for scaring off saber-tooths, but these mostly involve loud noises, flailing, and possibly surrendering your lunch. Other hazards round out the cast: giant eagles that consider toddlers an appetizer, wolverines with nothing to lose, and the occasional woolly rhinoceros, grumpy, nearsighted, and liable to charge anything that interrupts its breakfast. Every shadow is a potential threat, every rustle of grass, a new chapter in the Ice Age's ongoing game of will it eat me? Even resting isn't simple. While you nap, someone is always on watch duty, poking the fire and scanning for eyes shining in the darkness just beyond the light. Predators shape every aspect of your day. You build your campfires high and bright, arrange sleeping spots away from the entrance, and debate the merits of smellier versus stealthier as survival strategies. Even gathering water is an adventure. Do you want to be eaten while fetching it, or while running back with it? Life is a continuous balancing act between too bold and too cautious. Despite the stress, there's a certain camaraderie in surviving alongside such illustrious neighbors. You learn to laugh about near misses and brag about clever escapes, real or exaggerated. You swap stories with other clans about legendary beasts, and the one time someone outsmarted a whole pack of wolves by pretending to be a log. Some nights, you gather close to the fire, listening to the growls echoing outside and feeling a little proud to have made it through another day without becoming dinner. So, next time you stress about nosy neighbors or an aggressive goose at the park, spare a thought for your Ice Age ancestors. Their daily struggle wasn't just with the cold, it was with everything that wanted to eat them for lunch. Welcome to the original dangerous neighborhood. Gathering wood means a trek through ice, snow, and the vague suspicion you're being watched by something large and hungry. Every log you drag back feels like a personal victory, even if your hands are frozen into claws. Welcome to Winter Chores, Ice Age Edition, a world where your survival depends not on smart thermostats or electric blankets, but on your willingness to leave the relative warmth of your cave and do battle with the elements in the name of fuel. The fire doesn't feed itself, and there's no delivery service for kindling unless you count your cousin lobbing a frozen stick at your head. If you want to keep your teeth from chattering through the night, it's up to you to suit up, brave the wild, and haul enough wood to keep the fire alive. The first step is always layering. You put on every fur, hide, and scrap you can find, until you look like a bear trying to impersonate a laundry pile. Then it's outside, into a landscape that's somehow both blindingly white and oppressively grey. The wind cuts through your clothes with the enthusiasm of a saber-toothed cat eyeing a slow-moving snack, and your breath immediately turns to icicles on your upper lip. The forest, or what's left of it, is a maze of snowdrifts and half-buried logs, each one either frozen solid or sneakily rotten. You've developed a sixth sense for telling the difference. But every now and then you fall for a classic Ice Age prank, stepping on a sturdy branch, only for it to shatter under your weight and send you face first into the snow. You stand, brush yourself off, and vow vengeance on the next tree that betrays you. Collecting firewood isn't just about picking up sticks. It's a full-body workout. Bending, twisting, yanking stubborn branches, and doing your best not to drop them every time your fingers go numb. There's a constant background noise of teeth chattering, feet stomping, and the gentle grumbling that comes from knowing you're only halfway done. Sometimes you spot animal tracks, deer, rabbit, or something bigger, with claws. That's when you remember the vague suspicion part. You speed up, eyes darting between the woodpile and the nearest possible escape route. Every log you find is inspected with the seriousness of a jeweler examining a rare gem. Is it dry enough to burn? Too wet, and you'll spend the evening in a cloud of smoke. Too big, and you'll pull a muscle trying to drag it back. Too small, and you'll be out here again in 20 minutes. The perfect piece of firewood is a treasure, a dry, dense, not too heavy log that burns hot and long, and, if you're lucky, doesn't already have a family of bugs wintering inside. The journey back to the cave is an exercise in balance and perseverance. Your arms are loaded with sticks, your breath is coming in gasps, and your face is numb except for your nose, which has achieved a level of cold previously unknown to science. You focus on putting one foot in front of the other, ignoring the growing suspicion that you're being watched. When you finally stagger into the cave, everyone greets you like a conquering hero, or at least someone who's managed not to be eaten. Inside, the work isn't done. The fire needs constant tending, arranging logs just so, coaxing embers back to life, and gently blowing until flames flicker up again. There's an art to it. Too much wood and you smother the fire. Too little and it sputters out. Someone always has an opinion about the right way to build the perfect blaze, leading to spirited debates and occasional wrestling matches over the last dry stick. By evening, the cave is warm-ish. The smoke is thick, and you collapse onto your pile of furs with the satisfaction of a job well done. Your hands may be frozen, your nose bright red, but you survived another round of winter chores, and, at least until the fire dies down, you're king of the cave. So, next time you grumble about having to refill the wood stove or flip up the thermostat, spare a thought for your Ice Age alter ego. Every stick you pick up today is a victory over frostbite, wild beasts, and the relentless cold. Welcome to winter chores, where the reward is simple, not freezing to death. If you want something, you make it, from a spear to a needle made out of bone. Tools are fashioned from rocks, antlers, and whatever you tripped over this morning. Losing a tool means another fun night of sharpening rocks while everyone critiques your handiwork. In the Ice Age, there's no popping out to the hardware store for a new set of pliers. There's not even a hardware store unless you count that weird pile of flint behind the cave that your cousin insists is organized. Everything you need, you build yourself, and everything you build, you treasure, at least until you accidentally leave it behind on a mammoth hunt and have to play it cool while pretending you never really liked that spear anyway. Your first introduction to tool-making comes early. If you're a child, you're handed a rock and told, "Make something useful." No pressure. The grown-ups are busy flint-napping, carefully chipping away at a chunk of stone with another, smaller stone, producing razor-sharp edges and a shower of tiny chips that somehow always end up in someone's food. It's slow, tedious, and strangely satisfying, assuming you don't smash your thumb for the 5th time this week. Bone is the other big material on the prehistoric DIY list. Mammoth bones become hammers, needles, and even jewelry if you're feeling fancy. Antlers are shaped into hooks, scrapers, or tools for digging up stubborn roots. Every piece of an animal is used. Nothing goes to waste except, perhaps, your patience when the sinew you're using as thread keeps snapping. Even broken tools get recycled. If your spear tip chips off, congratulations, you now have an arrowhead. There's no instruction manual, just a lot of trial and error. The clan's master craftsman is usually whoever last managed to create something that didn't fall apart after 3 uses. If you're smart, you quietly observe the elders at work, picking up tips and tricks without asking too many questions. If you're bold, you invent your own tool, a 2-headed axe, maybe, or a club that doubles as a walking stick/squirrel deterrent. Sometimes your innovations are met with enthusiasm. Sometimes you end up on the receiving end of gentle, constructive criticism, also known as cave-wide laughter. Losing a tool is the ultimate shame. It doesn't matter if a wolf ran off with your scraper or if you dropped your favorite blade into the river, everyone will hear about it. You'll spend the evening sharpening a replacement under the watchful eyes of relatives, offering advice like, maybe try not losing this one. Tool-making sessions are part work, part group therapy, part comedy show. The conversation covers everything from the best way to tie sinew to remember that time Og tried to invent the world's first fork and nearly stabbed himself. Once your tool is finished, it's a thing of beauty, maybe not in the modern sense, but in that rugged, I made this and it works most of the time way. You test its edge, admire its symmetry, and hope it lasts longer than your last attempt. Special tools, like awls and needles, are passed down or swapped for favors. If you really want to impress, you carve designs or paint symbols on your creation, making it both functional and, if you squint, a little bit decorative. Of course, tool maintenance is a never-ending chore. Blades dull, points break, handles snap. Every night by the fire is an opportunity to hone, sharpen, or, if all else fails, blame your problems on bad stone. The best toolmakers are revered, their handiwork the stuff of local legend. The worst? Well, let's just say nobody forgets the person who tried to invent the throwing rock on a string and took out half the food supply in one unfortunate swing. So, the next time you're frustrated putting together flat-pack furniture or lose your favorite screwdriver, remember your Ice Age ancestors grinding away at rocks, tying bones together with sinew, and quietly inventing the original DIY lifestyle. In their world, every tool was hard-won, every project was custom, and every mistake was a lesson, usually a painful one, but always worth retelling around the fire. Not all animals are out to eat you. Some, like wolves, might just hang around and eat your scraps. Some become companions, sort of. Most become pests. Lice are a fact of life. You stopped counting them after the first 100. If you picture the Ice Age, you probably imagine herds of mammoths and the occasional saber-toothed cat trying to turn you into a protein bar. But day to day, your life is full of critters. Some you tolerate, some you try to domesticate, and some you spend your entire existence attempting to evict. The pet side of things is mostly accidental. It's not like anyone in your clan is out shopping for a golden retriever. But one day, a wolf starts hanging around your camp, drawn in by the delicious aroma of burnt reindeer and your cousin's total inability to keep track of leftovers. That wolf, at first, is a wary, hungry shadow. Eventually, it realizes that humans are messy eaters and terrible guards of their own garbage piles. Little by little, it slinks closer, figuring out who's most likely to accidentally drop a bone or look the other way during a snack. Over time, the wolf becomes part of the group, a 4-legged cleanup crew and, surprisingly, a decent alarm system. You toss it a scrap, it chases off smaller predators, and you gain a companion that's both loyal and extremely furry. Sure, it'll still eat your lunch if you turn your back, but you respect each other's hustle. And then there's that crow. Nobody knows where it came from, but it shows up every morning with the same attitude as your grumpiest uncle and a gift. A shiny pebble, a lost bead, or once, a slightly used mouse. The kids are obsessed. The adults are skeptical. The crow is unbothered, taking its seat on the good rock and overseeing the day's activities with beady-eyed amusement. You try to ignore it, but secretly you're hoping it brings you a nice piece of flint or at least stops cawing when you're trying to nap. But for every pet, there are 1,000 pests. The top of the list? Lice. There's no avoiding them. They live in your furs, your hair, your bedding, and probably places you don't want to think about. Picking lice is a social event, a chance to bond, swap stories, and question all your life choices as you search for tiny, itchy invaders. Some days, you feel like the lice are winning. Other days, you're sure they're organizing a small revolution in your eyebrows. Fleas run a close second. They hop, they bite, they never take a day off. You try every remedy known to prehistory. Mud baths, wild garlic, smoke, even holding your furs over the fire and hoping for the best. Nothing works for long. There's a shared understanding among the clan. Everyone itches, everyone scratches, and anyone who claims otherwise is definitely lying. Then there are the opportunists. Mice, rats, beetles, and every other tiny scavenger, hoping to score a free meal in your cave. You'd think they'd be scared off by all the humans and the occasional wolf, but no, these little freeloaders have mastered the art of stealth and persistence. They chew through food bags, leave presents in your moss bedding, and sometimes wake you up in the middle of the night with their enthusiastic scurrying. The crow loves them, the wolf less so. All of this means your relationship with the animal kingdom is complicated. You're grateful for the wolf's loyalty, the crow's gifts, and the brief moments when the lice seem to take a break. But most of the time, you're locked in an endless struggle to keep the pests out and your sanity in. It's a delicate balance, part mutual respect, part please don't bite me while I'm sleeping. So next time you sigh at a shedding dog or grumble about a mosquito bite, remember your Ice Age self, covered in fur, flanked by a semi-tame wolf, judged by a sassy crow, and locked in an eternal, itchy battle with every pest the Pleistocene had to offer. In the grand tradition of human history, you take the good with the bad, the pets with the pests, and you keep scratching your way through another day. There's no toothpaste, no dental floss, just chewing on sticks and occasionally losing a tooth in your dinner. Smiles are rare, and you're grateful for every tooth that stays put through another root-heavy meal. In the Ice Age, dental hygiene is about as low-tech as it gets. There are no minty gels, no brushes, not even a half-hearted rinse with questionable creek water. Your dental regimen? Hope for the best, and keep your mouth closed when you smile. Most mornings start with gnawing on a fibrous twig, pretending it's doing more good than harm. Toothbrushes are whittled sticks, sometimes with frayed ends, sometimes with a little bit of luck, but always with a lingering taste of bark. Your ancestors may have been resourceful, but let's be honest, dental science wasn't exactly their strong suit. Meals are a test of both courage and molar durability. Everything you eat requires aggressive chewing, roots, dried meat, nuts, and the occasional mystery object hiding in your pottage. Food is rarely soft. The closest you come to a smoothie is a snowberry mashed between two rocks, and even that could crack a filling if fillings had been invented yet. After a few years, everyone develops that signature Ice Age bite, a combination of determination, resignation, and the sound of enamel wearing away at the speed of erosion. Losing teeth is a rite of passage, not a crisis. The first time you bite into a particularly stubborn bit of reindeer jerky and feel something come loose, you're not surprised. You spit discreetly into the snow and carry on, adjusting your chewing strategy for the rest of your days. Dental pain is managed the prehistoric way. Ignore it, hope it goes away, or chew on a medicinal root that tastes like bad decisions and, if you're lucky, numbs the problem for an hour or two. The clan's dental care expert is whoever has the fewest missing teeth. Grandma boasts a near-complete set and claims her secret is chewing birch every morning and never eating frozen berries. Uncle's solution is to never let anything cold touch his teeth, which means he just spends most meals sighing dramatically and warning everyone to chew carefully, kids. If a tooth develops an infection, the only remedy is to pull it. No anesthesia, no gentle bedside manner, just a strong friend, a sharp bone tool, and a high pain threshold. You'll want to bite down on a stick for that one, and you'll be eating nothing but mushy roots for days. If you're lucky enough to keep most of your teeth, your breath is another matter. There's no such thing as mouthwash. The closest you get is chewing on wild mint if you stumble across it, or rinsing with a mouthful of snow, which does freshen things up, but only because your tongue goes numb and you can't taste anything for hours. Social norms adjust accordingly. People stand a little farther apart when talking, and public displays of affection are kept to a minimum. Nobody's judging your breath when theirs is just as questionable. Despite all this, the loss of a tooth or two is a badge of survival. If you've got a gap in your smile, it means you've made it through countless tough meals and even tougher winters. Some in the clan see it as good luck, a sign that you've earned your place by the fire. And if you need to signal distress, you can always run your tongue through the empty spot and make a face that says, "Root stew again? Really?" Stories circulate about distant tribes with magic powders or special stones for teeth, but you suspect those are just bedtime stories invented to distract from the reality of bone-chilling dental woes. For now, you make do with what you've got, your wits, your chewing stick, and a stubborn refusal to let a little thing like tooth pain ruin your day. So, next time you're brushing your teeth in the comfort of modern plumbing, be grateful. In the Ice Age, dental care meant survival. Every meal was a gamble, every tooth a victory, and every smile, no matter how gap-toothed, a reason to keep going. Chew on that, and be glad for your floss. As night falls, the clan gathers around the fire to share stories, some true, some wildly exaggerated, all slightly terrifying. Occasionally someone invents a new dance, but mostly you just stare into the flames and hope the wind doesn't shift. The Ice Age doesn't come with after-dinner television or a stack of board games in the corner. What you have is a crackling fire, a half-circle of tired humans bundled in pelts, and the sort of imagination that only gets weirder the hungrier and more sleep-deprived you are. The routine is timeless. Someone pokes the logs, someone else prods the embers, and everyone settles in for the nightly performance. Even the wolf curls up nearby, resigned to hearing Uncle's mammoth mishap story for the third time this week. Storytelling is the real entertainment, and it's a full-contact sport. The tales range from epic hunts, where the prey always gets bigger and the hunters braver with every retelling, to spooky encounters with spirits, giant owls, or that one time the fire refused to light for an entire week. Each narrator adds a little extra drama, a twist here, a heroic leap there, and occasionally an unexpected plot twist involving a runaway rabbit. The children are spellbound, hanging on every word. The adults? They know half the stories are nonsense, but that's half the fun. Myth-making is a communal project. There's always debate over whether a certain bison really had glowing red eyes, or if Grandma truly did chase off a cave bear with nothing but her slipper and a glare. Arguments about historical accuracy are settled with laughter, another round of roasted root, and the understanding that truth in storytelling is about 60% memory, 40% hope, and 100% don't let the kids have nightmares. Over time, these tales become family legend, giving everyone something to hold on to through the long, dark winters. Sometimes, when the mood is right and the shadows dance just so, someone starts a song. Ice Age singing is less melody and more group chant, but everyone joins in, clapping, stomping, or banging whatever isn't on fire. The rhythm echoes off the cave walls and out into the darkness, equal parts celebration and warning to any hungry beasts lurking nearby, occupied and possibly dangerous. Then there's dance, invented on nights when the fire is warm and the root stew hasn't dampened spirits too much. It's not so much choreography as a way to shake out cold feet and stiff joints. Everyone joins in, sometimes in time, sometimes in their own world. If you trip over your own mammoth hide boots, that's just part of the charm. And if someone actually invents a new move, like the falling log shuffle or the wind shift wiggle, it's quickly immortalized in cave legend. But when the embers burn low and conversation fades, the fire itself becomes the main attraction. You find yourself hypnotized by the glow, staring into the flickering flames and letting your mind wander through worries and hopes. It's a time for silent reflection, a communal therapy session where everyone quietly contemplates their day, their struggles, and whether or not that ominous howl in the distance was actually getting closer. Existential dread is a staple of Ice Age nightlife. There's a moment every evening when someone stares into the fire and mutters, "Do you think the sun will come back tomorrow?" It's only half a joke. The world outside is cold, dark, and full of things that bite. But somehow, as long as you're together around the fire, there's a stubborn kind of hope. You survived another day, after all. Maybe tomorrow, the mammoth will be slower, the weather kinder, and your story just a little less terrifying. So, the next time you stream a movie or fall asleep to the glow of your phone, picture your Ice Age self, sharing legends, inventing dances, and fighting off existential dread one roasted root at a time. In the end, the best entertainment is each other, a warm fire, and stories that make you laugh, shiver, and dream. Sleeping isn't peaceful. There's always a volunteer, usually you, who pulls the first night watch, listening for footsteps, growls, or that one family member who snores loud enough to attract wolves. In the Ice Age, sleep tight is less of a wish and more of a desperate plea. As darkness settles, the cave gets colder, the wind picks up, and outside, the world transforms into a buffet for everything with teeth, claws, or a strong sense of smell. Somebody needs to keep an eye, or at least an ear, out for danger, and congratulations, tonight it's your turn. You settle near the cave entrance. Wrap yourself in as many furs as you can muster, and try not to look like a midnight snack. Your main tool for night watch is a sturdy stick and a fire that you mustn't let die. The flickering flames are both comforting and absolutely necessary. Fire keeps the worst predators at bay and gives you something to stare at instead of the endless, shifting shadows. You prod the logs every few minutes, convincing yourself that every snap and crackle is just the fire settling and not something sneaking up behind you. But then, there are the other sounds. The maybe-it's-nothing rustle in the bushes, the occasional crunch of snow, and the unmistakable low growl that always sounds closer than it is. Your heart races as you debate whether to wake the clan or investigate with your stick, knowing full well that your bravery will never be properly appreciated in tomorrow's breakfast recap. You scan the darkness, straining your eyes and ears. The moonlight outside barely touches the snow, creating a landscape of shifting greys and wiggling tree shadows. Sometimes, the wind tricks you into thinking a saber-tooth is just outside. Other times, it really is just your cousin sneaking outside for an emergency bathroom trip, accidentally triggering a family-wide panic and giving everyone something to tease them about for weeks. The silence is never complete. Someone inside the cave is snoring, so loudly you half expect it to trigger an avalanche. The wolf, your unofficial security system, occasionally pricks up its ears or lets out a quiet warning bark. You lean in, listening for the difference between danger is here and the neighbor's crow just dropped another pebble on the roof. Every so often you stoke the fire and check that everyone is still where they're supposed to be. Sleeping arrangements are tactical. Elders and children are closest to the warmth, while the strongest adults form a protective, snoring perimeter. If you're lucky, the dog curls up by your feet, radiating warmth and confidence. If you're less lucky, the dog just takes your spot entirely. Time moves slowly when you're on watch. You cycle through emotions, anxiety, determination, boredom, and the overwhelming urge to nod off. You invent games, counting the seconds between each crackle of the fire, guessing how many more hours until sunrise, or listing the reasons you're definitely not the slowest runner in the group should things go sideways. You imagine yourself as the hero of tomorrow's stories, the one who single-handedly fended off a pack of wolves with only a burnt stick and a song. Occasionally, your mind drifts to existential questions. Why do predators only hunt at night? Why does your family insist on snoring with their mouths open? Why did you eat that second helping of root stew? But you quickly snap back to alertness at the faintest new noise, clutching your stick and preparing to defend your loved ones from whatever prehistoric nightmare might come, slinking through the snow. Eventually, your shift ends. You gently nudge the next unlucky volunteer awake, pass the stick like a torch or a burden, and crawl back to your own sleeping pile. As you drift off, you listen to the sounds of someone else trying to stay awake, comforted by the knowledge that, for tonight at least, you've kept your people safe. Sleep comes, finally, light, restless, but earned. So, the next time you grumble about insomnia or a noisy neighbor, picture your Ice Age self, wrapped in furs, clutching a stick, facing the shadows with equal parts dread and determination. In the end, every peaceful night was the result of someone watching, waiting, and hoping the only thing to come sniffing was tomorrow's dawn. No matter the day, the forecast is cold, with a 90% chance of wind making your nose fall off. You learn to read the sky for storms, hope for clear nights, and curse every sudden snow squall that ruins your fire. If you're hoping for variety, the Ice Age weather is happy to disappoint. Every morning you step outside your cave, sniff the air like a suspicious dog, and squint at a sky that always seems to promise trouble. "What's the weather?" you ask, and the answer is always the same: colder than yesterday, windier than you'd like, and with a real risk of icicles forming on your eyebrows before breakfast. You become a weather expert by necessity. There's no meteorologist with a green screen, just generations of clan wisdom and the ability to spot angry cloud versus slightly less angry cloud. The elders claim to read the wind by the way it rattles the mammoth hide at the cave entrance. If it flaps loudly, brace yourself. If it's silent, that means it's frozen solid, which is somehow worse. Weather folklore is as much a survival skill as knowing how to start a fire or remember which side of the mammoth is less likely to collapse. The cold is relentless, a silent houseguest who overstays their welcome for years on end. Layered in furs, you shuffle across the snow, toes and fingers tingling their daily protest. On some days, the wind picks up with the kind of intensity usually reserved for natural disasters, cutting through every piece of clothing you own and whistling through the cracks in your cave. You discover new kinds of cold, face-stinging cold, knee-biting cold, and that special brand of chill that creeps up your back and settles in for the week. Snow is both your friend and your nemesis. A fresh fall means easier tracking of animals and a rare, cleanish place to rinse off. But it also means shoveling, slipping, and occasionally losing a child, a tool, or a grandparent until the next thaw. You invent a dozen new ways to describe snow: slushy, powdery, wet, sharp, sticky, crusty. And your personal favorite? Nope, not going out in that. Precipitation is mostly frozen, ranging from light, polite flurries to full-blown whiteouts where you can't see your own feet. Rain is rare, but when it does happen, the resulting ice makes for an obstacle course every time you fetch water or take out the mammoth bones. Some days, the sun breaks through, a glorious, blinding orb that makes the snow sparkle and everyone's suspiciously optimistic. Elders warn you not to trust it. Enjoy it, but don't let the cave get drafty. The real danger is storms. A sudden blizzard can sweep in, dropping the temperature and visibility to guess and hope levels. Firewood gets wet, fires go out, and you end up huddled together, swapping stories and trying to ignore the fact that the wind sounds a lot like a hungry cave bear. Sometimes, the snow drifts so high you can't open the cave door, and you're forced to dig your way out like a determined, underdressed mole. There's also the joy of freezing rain, which adds a lovely crunch to every step and turns basic chores, like getting breakfast, into extreme sports. Your only umbrella is a piece of reindeer hide, which works fine until the wind decides to turn it inside out. Still, you persevere. You learn to cover your face, double up on mittens, and tie everything down that isn't already frozen to the ground. The evening ritual is to check the sky again. If the clouds are thin and the stars come out, it might be a good night, cold but clear and perfect for sharing stories by the fire. If the wind howls and the snow starts falling sideways, you check your firewood, tighten the mammoth hide, and thank the ancient weather spirits that at least you're not sleeping outside. So, The next time you groan about an icy windshield or curse at the forecast for one more grey day, remember your Ice Age alter ego. Their weather report is always the same. Bundle up, keep the fire going, and whatever you do, don't lick the icicles. In the prehistoric forecast, the only guarantee is ice. There's no medicine, just herbal teas, optimistic chanting, and the strong suggestion to walk it off. Colds, infections, and frostbite are a daily part of life. If you survive a winter cough, you're basically a medical miracle. When you wake up in the Ice Age with a sore throat and a nose running faster than a startled reindeer, you quickly realize just how far modern medicine has yet to evolve. There's no hot water bottle, no take two and call me in the morning, and definitely no doctor who doesn't also double as the village tanner, childminder, and part-time shaman. Your medical team is a collection of concerned relatives, some dried herbs, and a robust belief in the healing power of animal fat. The first line of defense is herbal tea, a wild concoction brewed from whatever plants someone swears are good for coughs, and definitely not last week's foraging mistake. You gulp it down, gagging as the bitter taste burns your tongue, and you're told this means it's working. If you're lucky, the herbal remedy comes with a soothing story. My aunt drank this and lived to be 35. If you're less lucky, you find out halfway through that the tea's primary ingredient is slightly chewed pine needles for more serious ailments. The clan shaman gets involved. The shaman's toolkit includes chanting, rhythmic drumming, and an impressive array of necklaces made from things that probably should have stayed buried. If you've got a fever, you get wrapped in furs, doused with smoke from sacred herbs, and maybe gently slapped with a pine branch for good measure. All of this is delivered with great confidence, and you're not sure whether to feel reassured or just mildly flammable. Frostbite is a regular visitor. The tips of your fingers and toes are the first to go, slowly turning from red to white, to better not look at that. Treatment is basic. Warm up by the fire and pray. If a digit falls off, it becomes a cautionary tale for the kids and, occasionally, a lucky charm hung near the cave entrance. If your ears start tingling, it's time for another round of chanting and an extra layer of mammoth hide. Infections are the real danger. A small cut from sharpening a spear can turn into a festering wound overnight. The best you can hope for is to pack it with moss, chant a bit, and wait. Occasionally, the shaman will attempt surgery with a sharp bone or a hot stone. If you're desperate and out of options, you agree. If you survive, you're considered blessed and expected to brag about it for years. Colds and coughs sweep through the clan every winter. There's no quarantine. If you're sick, you just move to the outer ring of sleeping bodies and try not to cough directly onto the communal food pile. You keep moving, keep working, and ignore the rattle in your chest because walking it off is more than advice. It's a way of life. If you're really lucky, someone will remember a special root or ritual said to cure all ills. But most of the time you just wait for the fever to break, or for spring to come, whichever happens first. Health and hygiene are improvisational. Bathing in ice water is supposed to build character and immunity, but mostly it's an excuse to invent new swear words. If someone in the clan makes it to old age, 40, if you're a true legend, they become the resident expert on not dying, dispensing advice that mostly boils down to don't be stupid and wear your extra furs. Despite all this, there's a remarkable resilience. You get sick, you heal, you move on. Clan members nurse each other through coughs and fevers, swap remedies and superstitions, and invent new ones as needed. Survival isn't guaranteed, but stubbornness is. When someone does recover, it's cause for celebration, proof that you're all a little tougher than the cold, the cough, or even the worst-tasting tea. So next time you complain about waiting for your prescription at the pharmacy, remember, your Ice Age ancestors cured their ills with optimism, fur blankets, and a relentless determination not to let a cough keep them down. If you made it through a winter fever, you didn't just survive, you thrived. Living together in close quarters means plenty of drama. Who ate the last of the dried berries, who tracked mammoth dung into the sleeping area, who's hogging the best bit of fire. Passive-aggressive grunting is the main form of communication. Cave life isn't just cold and hungry, it's crowded. In the Ice Age, your entire extended family, some vaguely related hangers-on, and at least 2 people who never seem to do any work all pile together under one damp, smoky roof. If you want privacy, your best bet is to climb behind a stalagmite and hope nobody notices, though, inevitably, someone will. Space is a shared concept. So are chores, meals, and every bit of personal business you'd rather keep private. Every day is a group project, and every group project comes with its own set of strong personalities. There's the sibling who insists on singing morning chants way too early, the uncle who snores so loudly the wolves think there's a rival pack nearby, and the cousin who's always just resting their eyes when there's firewood to fetch. Arguments break out constantly. The 2 main topics? Food and warmth. Someone is always suspected of stealing the best cut of dried meat. The fire becomes a battlefield, with everyone maneuvering their furs as close as possible and shooting icy looks at anyone who dares encroach on their warmth. Household chores are rarely fair. It's always the same few people collecting water from the half-frozen river or picking nits out of everyone's hair, while others supervise from the comfort of their rock. Whenever something goes wrong, like an invasion of beetles or a suspicious shortage of firewood, blame is distributed with the speed and accuracy of a thrown spear. Who left the mammoth hide open all night becomes the ancestral version of who left the front door unlocked. Grudges are inevitable and take on a prehistoric flair. You may find your favorite pelt accidentally borrowed or your stash of pine nuts mysteriously light. Revenge is subtle, a pointed sigh, a muttered story about the one who can't be trusted, or a bit of creative cave art that suspiciously resembles your least favorite cousin with crossed eyes and a frown. Family meetings are frequent and loud, featuring more grunting than actual words, and always ending in a half-hearted group hug to remind everyone that, despite everything, you need each other to survive. The elders play referee. Their main job is to keep the peace and occasionally drop bits of wisdom like, share the warmth and you'll share the luck, or let the youngest take the first bite, they're less likely to complain. But even they have their moments, especially when someone forgets to refill the water skins or trips over the sleeping dog for the 3rd time that week. Children are agents of chaos. They dart between sleeping adults, try to help with chores by hiding important tools, and inevitably set off squabbles over who gets to hold the sharpest stick. Their energy is endless, their loyalties shift by the hour, and they're often the first to point out any new drama. Uncle Og's snoring again. Who broke the berry bowl? Why does it smell like reindeer pee? Still, in between the daily arguments and minor betrayals, family bonds are forged stronger than mammoth sinew. No matter how many times you squabble, you're always back together by the fire at night, sharing stories, warmth, and whatever food survived the latest round of passive-aggressive hoarding. On the coldest, bleakest days, you find comfort in the familiar chaos, because no matter what, this is your clan, your team, your slightly dysfunctional Ice Age group chat. So, the next time you're tempted to roll your eyes at a family group text or get annoyed at your housemates for eating your leftovers, remember, your ancestors survived blizzards and saber-tooths by learning to live with a little drama, a lot of grumbling, and the constant, comforting noise of a family that just can't help being a family. In the Ice Age, drama is survival, and family is everything. Flirting is mostly about offering someone the least frozen piece of meat or sharing your fire. Courtship rituals include not letting your partner be eaten by wolves and picking lice off each other. It's as romantic as it sounds. Forget candlelit dinners, bouquets of roses, or late-night text messages. In the Ice Age, love is a practical affair built on shared suffering, survival, and the understanding that life is short, cold, and made marginally more bearable if you have someone to huddle with by the fire. Relationships are forged in adversity and sealed with the universal sign of true affection. Here, you take the good piece of reindeer fat. I'll chew on the bone. The first step in prehistoric romance is, of course, catching someone's eye. No easy feat when everyone is wearing 3 layers of mammoth hide, and most faces are hidden behind scarves or, on especially cold days, a curtain of unruly hair. Beauty standards are refreshingly simple. Strong teeth, if you still have them, good fire, tending skills and the ability to throw a spear or at least not get trampled by a woolly rhino. The Ice Age flirting repertoire is vast and subtle. You might toss a partner an extra strip of dried meat with a look that says, "I value you more than calories." A well-timed joke about the neighbour's crow can set hearts fluttering. For the really bold, there's the classic move, offering to pick lice from your beloved's hair, a gesture that says, "I'm willing to get close, even if it means discovering what's actually living in your scalp." If your courtship goes well, you may be rewarded with a personal nickname, usually something flattering, like Fast Runner, Firekeeper, or Didn't Die Today. Date nights are a bit rough around the edges. If you're lucky, you escape the cave for a brisk walk under the stars, provided the weather isn't actively trying to kill you. Maybe you watch the northern lights together, holding hands through mittens so thick you can barely feel each other. Or you invent new Ice Age traditions, like carving each other's initials into a handy birch tree, provided no bear is using it as a scratching post. Gift-giving is thoughtful, if unconventional. The most cherished presents aren't jewelry or love letters, but rather rare finds. A handful of sweet berries, a particularly smooth stone for scraping hides, or the last usable sewing needle in the family. The rule is simple. If it's useful and you're willing to give it away, you're serious. Engagement rings? No, but you might get an especially nice wolf tooth, or a bit of colourful shell if your suitor is truly smitten. The parents, naturally, have opinions about every budding romance. Elders tell cautionary tales about unions gone wrong, never marry a man who can't keep his fire going, and offer unsolicited advice on the importance of picking a mate who can share chores and doesn't steal all the good pelts. Every relationship comes with the unspoken agreement that if you bring home extra food, your in-laws will judge it for tenderness, flavour, and not being the same root stew as last week. Once coupled, you and your partner settle into the familiar rhythm of Ice Age romance. You take turns watching the fire through the long nights, offer each other the least uncomfortable moss pillow, and join forces to keep the kids from wandering off into the snow. Romantic evenings are spent sharing stories, making up songs, and occasionally reminiscing about that first awkward lice-picking session by the fire. Arguments happen, usually about chores, sometimes about whose turn it is to clean the mammoth bones, or why someone keeps losing the only good spear. But, just as quickly, laughter returns. A snowball to the back of the head, a shared wink over a burnt meal, or the simple comfort of another person's warmth after a long, frozen day reminds you why you picked each other in the first place. So, next time you sigh about dating apps or modern romance woes, remember your Ice Age ancestors. Their love stories might not make it into a rom-com, but they're built to last. Practical, stubborn, and able to weather even the longest, coldest winter, together, with a little lice-picking and a lot of heart. You worship spirits, animals, the sun, or whatever you think might keep you from freezing to death. Rituals involve dancing, chanting, and painting things on rocks. Your main prayer: please, just one warm day. In the Ice Age, religion is less about dogma and more about desperately hoping that if you're polite enough to the local mammoth spirit, it won't let your toes fall off this winter. You look to the sky, the wind, and the endless, mysterious northern lights, searching for some sign that the world is listening and, ideally, planning to go easy on you this season. The clan's official list of deities is flexible: sun gods for warmth, moon spirits for luck, animal totems for bravery, and at least one weather entity whose main job is to stop the snow from drifting straight into your bed. Spiritual leaders in your group tend to be the oldest, the oddest, or simply the ones with the best collection of beads and feathers. These shamans preside over ceremonies with a certain flair, daubed in ochre, festooned with animal teeth, and frequently shaking a stick adorned with mysterious objects that rattle and clink in the firelight. Their main tools are drama, confidence, and a remarkable ability to pretend they aren't shivering while leading midnight rituals outside the cave. Daily life is peppered with little acts of faith. Before a hunt, someone draws a reindeer on the cave wall and whispers encouragement to it. Never mind that it looks more like a misshapen dog. If the fire refuses to start, you chant softly and promise the spirits a bit of the next big catch, assuming you survive that long. Every child is taught a handful of protective gestures, like tucking a lucky bone into their pouch or spinning 3 times before crossing a particularly treacherous snowfield. Is it effective? Who knows? But you're not about to risk finding out. Seasonal rituals are the highlight of the social calendar. There's the Please Let Spring Come festival, which involves elaborate dances that look suspiciously like people just trying to shake feeling back into their feet. When the sun finally returns after weeks of gloom, everyone gathers to sing, feast, and squint at the strange, blinding yellow thing in the sky. On the longest nights, the shaman leads processions around the fire, telling stories of ancestors, legendary hunts, and the time someone supposedly wrestled a bear, which everyone knows is definitely an exaggeration, probably. Every object in your life has a possible spiritual use. Animal bones double as charms or talismans, bits of carved wood become offerings, and even the family dog might be persuaded to wear a necklace of shells for luck. Stones arranged in circles mark sacred places, some for praying, some for arguing, and at least one for hiding from chores. When in doubt, you add another rock to the pile. The more, the holier. Much of your faith revolves around weather, which, let's be honest, is the real boss of your existence. There are prayers for clear skies, dry wood, and merciful blizzards. If a storm hits, the cave fills with muttered curses and frantic rituals. The most powerful prayer, uttered by children and elders alike, is simple and direct. Please, just one warm day. Sometimes it's whispered into cupped hands. Sometimes it's shouted at the sky in sheer frustration. Despite, or perhaps because of, the hardships, your clan's spirituality is also a source of comfort and unity. After all, it's easier to face endless winter when you believe you're all in it together, watched over by the spirits of mammoths, sun, and the occasional benevolent pinecone. Stories passed down through generations give everyone a sense of place in a world that's otherwise cold, vast, and a little bit terrifying. So, the next time you light a candle, check your horoscope, or complain about the weather, remember your Ice Age ancestors. Their faith was practical, passionate, and slightly desperate, but it kept them going through the endless chill. In the end, the greatest miracle was simply making it to spring with your toes, mostly intact. As the fire dies down, you crawl into your makeshift bed, grateful to have survived another day. You listen to the wind outside, double-check your toes, and hope tomorrow doesn't include mammoth stampedes, saber-toothed attacks, or, worst of all, running out of firewood. Sleep tight, or at least try. Nighttime in the Ice Age is its own kind of epic. The warmth of the fire fades, leaving only a glow and a maze of shadows stretching up the walls, transforming everyday objects into prehistoric monsters. Bison horns become tusks, a pile of sticks morphs into a crouched saber-tooth, and that lump in the corner is either your uncle or a bear skin you forgot to shake out. You wrap yourself tightly in animal hides, tugging the furs up to your chin, and do a quick head-to-toe inventory. Fingers, toes, ears. Check, check, check. Everything is still attached, more or less functional, and only slightly frostbitten. The family piles in close, making the sleeping arrangements look like a game of how many humans can you fit on this side of the fire. There's no such thing as personal space. Every inch is claimed by a snoring sibling, a restless child, or the dog, who has somehow secured the warmest, most central spot. You accept this indignity because the alternative is sleeping on the outer edge, right next to the drafty wall and the always suspect moss pillow. You close your eyes and listen. The wind howls through cracks in the cave, sometimes whistling, sometimes moaning, always reminding you how thin the barrier is between survival and disaster. The cave pops and settles, the fire crackles one last time, and outside, something, hopefully just the crow, scratches at the rocks. For a few moments, you wonder if tomorrow will be easier. Maybe the weather will warm, the hunting will be good, and you won't lose your only decent needle in a snowdrift. But reality sets in. There's no guarantee the coming day won't be just as hard as the last. It could bring a blizzard, a fever, or, heaven forbid, another round of family drama over who forgot to bring in more firewood. But there's comfort, too, in the routine. The work is always waiting, but so is the clan. Your people, loud, itchy, occasionally smelly, are always there beside you, helping each other through the nightly checklist. Is the fire safe? Are the food supplies stashed away from rodents? Is the dog definitely not planning to eat all the berries before morning? Some nights, sleep is a luxury. The snoring chorus is occasionally interrupted by a nightmare, a cold breeze, or a child's sudden giggle as they dream about catching a reindeer with their bare hands. You roll over, adjust the furs, and try not to think about the suspiciously tooth-shaped rock digging into your shoulder. You wonder what the world was like before the cold, or if it will ever be warm again. It's a fleeting thought, gone as soon as you hear someone's stomach rumble, tomorrow's problem, for tomorrow's version of you. Still, despite the discomforts and lurking dangers, there's a stubborn hope in every heart. You survived. You made it through another day of gathering roots, outrunning predators, losing at least one mitten, and pretending to enjoy the evening's mystery stew. The fire may be down to its last glowing ember, but inside you carry a little warmth, a sense of accomplishment that comes from making it, day after prehistoric day. So as your eyes finally drift shut and the cave settles into a collective, exhausted sigh, you whisper your nightly prayer. Let tomorrow be kind. The Ice Age is brutal, but so are you. You're tougher than the wind, craftier than the wolves, and, at least tonight, warm enough to face another morning. Sleep tight. If you can, move over. Swiss Army knife. Your most trusted gadget is a moderately sharp rock, which doubles as a hammer, knife, shovel, nutcracker, and, in emergencies, an uncomfortable pillow. Every member of the clan boasts their own signature stone, and woe to the person who mistakes your favorite flint for a fire starter. You keep it tucked in your mammoth hide belt pouch, just in case you have to invent the wheel before lunch. In the Ice Age, the height of portable technology is not a phone or a tablet or even a really good pair of socks. It's the perfect rock, heavy enough to crack open a bone, sharp enough to cut through sinew, flat enough to smash a beetle, and with just the right grip for your mitten-wrapped hand. Finding your signature stone is a coming-of-age moment. It might be passed down from a legendary ancestor. This belonged to Aunt Groog, who once fought off a cave bear with it. Or discovered on a day when you tripped over something in the river and, voila! Technology. A good rock is everything. It is the original multi-tool, the survivalist's best friend, and, occasionally, a makeshift defense against your siblings' passive-aggressive pranks. You give it a name. You stash it in a pouch, or tie it onto your belt with sinew. You show it off at social gatherings, comparing notches and wear patterns the way modern folks compare phone cases and battery life. Oh, yours has a built-in groove for scraping hides? Classic. Mine has a slightly pointier tip, very on-trend this season. Daily chores are shaped by the humble rock. Need to prepare dinner? Out comes the flint to skin and butcher a rabbit. Is a root too tough to pull up? Time for your trusty digging stone. Did you find a shell or a stubborn nut? That's a job for the cracking rock. The most organized among you have a rock for every occasion, a full Ice Age toolkit that weighs about as much as your left leg, but which you'd never leave behind, not even for an extra piece of reindeer jerky. Of course, not every stone is created equal. The best rocks come from riverbeds, where years of tumbling and polishing have produced just the right blend of smoothness and edge. There are family disputes over who gets to claim the good spot by the river each spring, with elaborate negotiations, early morning expeditions, and the occasional sprint fight over a particularly promising hunk of quartz. Jealousy runs rampant. If someone accidentally borrows your signature stone and forgets to return it, it's grounds for a weeks-long cold shoulder and at least one angry cave painting. Maintenance is a daily ritual, sharpening your rock on a chunk of sandstone, cleaning it with a handful of moss, maybe even polishing it on your sleeve before an important event, like making soup. The sharpest edges are fiercely protected, and if you spot a chip or crack, you sigh like someone who's just discovered a dent in their new car. There's even a thriving under-the-fur trade in rare rocks. A really nice piece of obsidian could score you the choicest chunk of mammoth fat at the next feast. Sometimes you get creative. Two stones lashed together with animal sinew become a primitive hammer. A row of sharp flakes stuck into a stick is the closest thing you have to a serrated knife. Rock technology is limited only by your imagination and how much spare time you have when you're not busy, not freezing to death. The status of your rock is everything. It's part utility, part personality, part insurance policy for the world's most inconvenient emergencies, like when your cousin challenges you to an impromptu nut-cracking contest, or when you need to demonstrate your worth to the group by inventing something vaguely wheel-shaped before lunch. So, the next time you misplace your keys or drop your phone in a puddle, remember, your Ice Age ancestors kept it simple. They prized their rocks, treasured their favorite flint, and knew that sometimes all you need is the right stone to get through the day. In the prehistoric world, portable tech was a rock, because in the end, that's all you really needed to survive, thrive, and, occasionally, invent the next big thing. Shopping is simple in the Ice Age. You see it, you want it, you chase after it. Gathering supplies often means staring longingly at a stash of nuts some angry rodent just buried, or bartering with your neighbor for half a charred fish in exchange for a slightly less lice-infested sleeping mat. Inflation is measured in number of steps before you find anything remotely edible, and every lost item is blamed on saber-toothed cats, even if you know it was definitely just Greg. In a world without shopping carts, checkout lines, or even the concept of a store, every acquisition is an adventure. The Ice Age economy is part scavenger hunt, part high-stakes negotiation, and part did I really just lose out to a squirrel again? You learn early on that supply chains are as unpredictable as the weather. If you need something, you go looking, and if you find something, you guard it with the kind of paranoia usually reserved for lottery winners. Take food, for instance. The nearest grocery store is a berry bush 2 valleys over, assuming the birds haven't stripped it clean by the time you get there. For protein, you're on the lookout for small animals, nests, or the rare opportunity to borrow an egg from a distracted bird. The cleverest foragers become experts at tracking which squirrel is hiding the biggest cache of acorns. But woe to the human who thinks they can outwit a squirrel. Those little rodents have nothing but time and the memory of a wrong done to their great-great-grandmouse. Sometimes you spot a rival clan gathering something you need. Maybe firewood, maybe roots, maybe that rare, perfectly flat rock you've been eyeing all season. If you're feeling diplomatic, you offer to trade a handful of dried berries for a piece of mammoth sinew or a particularly artistic feather for the best spot near the fire. If you're less diplomatic, you stage a midnight acquisition and hope the blame falls on local wildlife. Sorry, Greg. Barter is the name of the game, and everyone's an amateur economist. The value of goods fluctuates wildly based on weather, hunger, and who's currently in charge of the fire. Some days, you can trade a bone needle for enough dried fish to feed the family. On other days, you'd have to throw in a hand-woven net, a promise to collect extra firewood, and maybe a firstborn cousin for good measure. Haggling is a social skill passed down through generations. Children learn early that a little dirt on the face and a big-eyed stare can turn even the hardest trader into a softie. Every so often a trade goes wrong. You swap a bundle of roots for a guaranteed fresh rabbit skin, only to discover it's mostly holes and history. Or you get a suspiciously lumpy sack in exchange for your best stone blade, only to open it and find, surprise, rocks. Greg again. Instead of customer service, you get communal shaming, and the unspoken rule that next time, you check before you trade. Occasionally, you get creative with your supply problems. Rope running low, twist some grass, add a little animal sinew, and voila, a new, slightly frayed lifeline. Out of containers? Hollow out a gourd, or better yet, acquire one from your neighbors and claim it was a gift from the spirits. Nobody questions a spiritual gift, especially if the shaman nods along. And let's not forget supply losses. Whenever something essential goes missing, a sharp rock, a precious shell, a chunk of dried meat, everyone immediately blames the most convenient scapegoat. Saber-toothed cats, ravens, the wind, or that time Greg tripped and dropped everything into the river. The reality? It's usually just buried under a pile of furs or, more often, quietly squirreled away by the family's youngest future trader. So, the next time you complain about shipping delays or empty grocery store shelves, remember your Ice Age ancestors. Their supply chain was their own 2 feet, their patience, and a healthy respect for the world's most ambitious rodents. If you got what you needed, it was a victory. If you didn't, well, you just blamed Greg. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep beneath your soft, clean sheets, possibly with the faint whir of a bedside fan instead of a woolly mammoth snoring in your ear, maybe spare a moment to appreciate just how far humanity has come. You survived a full day in the Ice Age, at least in theory. You faced off against blizzards, saber-toothed cats, and root stew with dignity, determination, and a fur coat that honestly should have come with a warning label. We've travelled through the rituals of waking up frozen, inventing fashion with whatever didn't run away first, and perfecting the lost art of making dinner with your bare and barely functional hands. You've tried to keep the fire going while your toes negotiated a peace treaty with frostbite, navigated the politics of sharing your cave with both family and livestock, and found that prehistoric dental care is just hope for the best and chew carefully. And somehow, in between dodging stampeding mammoths, inventing bedtime stories by torchlight, and surviving on a diet that would make modern nutritionists weep, you made it to sundown. You lived, laughed, and probably lost a tooth. But you didn't lose your sense of humor. It's easy to romanticize the past until you actually have to live in it. So, as you settle into your perfectly climate-controlled bedroom, maybe send a silent thank you to your Ice Age ancestors, the ones who stubbornly, hilariously refused to freeze, starve, or let a saber-tooth ruin their night. Because history may be cold, muddy, and sometimes a little ridiculous, but it's also proof that people will do just about anything to keep going, even if it means inventing art, friendship, or a better way to scratch your flea bites. Sleep well tonight, knowing you don't have to wake up at dawn to hunt breakfast, and your only predators are the thoughts that keep you awake at 2 a.m. May your dreams be mammoth-sized and your worries as light as a prehistoric feather. Good night.